It's crazy because, I mean, this Texans team reminds me so much of the Packers of the past, 5 years, where the Packers were so good because of Aaron Rodgers. And I felt for years that McCarthy was kind of holding that team back with a bad scheme. Not that the Packers really weren't able to bring in a running game for Aaron Rodgers ever. They weren't able to give Aaron Rodgers a defense for the longest time. And, Aaron Rodgers brought this team to the playoffs, or brought the Packers to the playoffs every single year. And, they would always, it seemed like they would get pretty close, and they'd always lose in the playoffs, and it would kind of be a cycle. And then we saw that cycle kind of end when McCarthy was fired last year. They're bringing LaFleur, and, they lost this week, surprisingly so. We'll get to that later. But for the most part, it seems like they're turning a corner as a team and as a franchise. I see kind of a similar situation happening with the Texans. Like, the Texans are probably going to make the playoffs this year. They're not going to go to the Super Bowl. They're just not. They're not good enough to beat the Patriots. They're not good enough to beat probably the Ravens or the Chiefs, in my opinion. They're going to lose in the first or second round of the playoffs, and it's going to be kind of a disappointment. I feel like that's going to be a cycle because Deshaun Watson, yes, he has DeAndre Hopkins, who's awesome. That's great. But he doesn't really have a offensive line, and I know they traded all those picks for Tunsil. Well, yeah, you got one guy, but there's 5 guys on offensive line, and now you don't have your top picks to maybe build that up. J.J. Watt's out for the rest of this season. If he comes back next year, great. But he's still, an aging superstar who's not the same guy. That defense is not good. It's not elite by any means. It has some pieces, yeah, here and there it can be okay, but I mean, as a unit, it's nothing special. I can say the same thing about their run game. I can say the same thing about their receivers outside of DeAndre Hopkins. I'm nervous for Hopkins or for Watson. The way I'm seeing this team go, I feel like Watson's going to be carrying not only the team, he's supposed to do that, but also the coach and the front office, and the front office is kind of in a weird situation. So we'll see how that plays out. But especially the coach, Billy O'Brien, who I'm on record not believing in. I feel like Watson's going to carry Billy O'Brien to having a longer career in Houston than maybe he deserves to because of how good Watson is. Almost too good for his own good, if that makes any sense. And I'm sorry if I just offended a lot of fans from multiple fan bases, but that's how I see it.